9 spine-chilling motel encounters exposed. Terrifying tales that will haunt you all night. Claire, a travel nurse, pulled into the shadowy parking lot of the Rebecca Ridge Motel, the neon sign buzzing an eerie tone that rattled her nerves. She was exhausted, having just fought through yet another grueling night shift that felt like a lifetime. It was past midnight, and the desolation swallowed her. Only the flickering light illuminated the greasy facade of the forgotten establishment. A sense of dread trickled down her spine as she parked. She craved solace, but there was only silence. Inside her cramped room, the oppressive air wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. The peeling wallpaper bore strange scribbles, messages left behind by previous guests. They watch when darkness falls, do not stay past nightfall. The words echoed in her mind, igniting a flicker of fear. She chuckled nervously, shaking off superstitions as mere folklore. After all, she triumphed over life and death decisions daily. But as the minutes stretched into chilling hours, whispers grew louder, slithering under the door, a raspy, conspiratorial murmur teasing her ears. Just the wind, Claire muttered, but a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Shadows wavered against the walls, stretching sinister fingers in the flickering light. The feeling of being watched gnawed at her, tightening her chest. She reached for her phone. Julie, her fellow nurse, popped into her thoughts, a brief connection from earlier that night. "Did you hear about Rebecca Ridge?" she asked, a glint of worry in her eyes. But that memory faded into her now lonely moment. Claire's breath hitched as she discerned the odd behavior of the motel staff. Their smiles were too wide, too knowing. They exchanged glances like they shared a confounding secret about her. Was it fear or paranoia? Questions flared in her mind. No one had warned her about this place. Suddenly, her phone rang, an intrusive sound against the eerie silence that turned her blood cold. "Claire!" Julie's voice pierced through the tension, trembling and urgent. "You need to get out of there. They're not what they seem." A chill washed over Claire as Julie recounted strange events from the town, lost guests, shadows that whispered secrets, and townsfolk glancing back at old family curses. Panic clawed at Claire's throat. Was she being lured into danger? She scanned the shadows gathering around her, feeling their weight pressing in. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The call abruptly cut off. The silence returned, heavier than before. Heart racing, she felt the shadows shift, heard the whispers grow louder. Her fear ignited a spark of defiance. Claire knew she had to confront whatever waited beyond that facade. With a resolve fueled by adrenaline, she whispered to herself, "They can't hold me here." As she bolted out the door, the motel loomed behind her like a predator, the air thick with uncertainty. But step by step deeper into the unknown, an ancestral curse wrapped its fingers around her fate, blurring reality with terror. Now the question loomed, who were the watchers, and what darkness would Claire uncover? Claire sprinted across the cracked asphalt, breathless, her heart hammering in her chest. The cold night air felt drenched in an unsettling heaviness that pushed against her, urging her to turn back. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, mocking her resolve with their quiet persistence. There was no going back to that room. She had to find a way out. As she darted towards the motel's entrance, the flickering neon sign cast eerie, distorted patterns on the ground. Each step felt monumental, as if the very earth wanted to pull her under. She glanced back, expecting to see something horrific, but only the empty parking lot yawned behind her, a yawning void of stillness that seemed alive. Claire reached the front desk, where the same clerk from earlier sat, his unnaturally wide grin so grotesque it made her stomach churn. "Need something?" he asked, the words slithering from his mouth like a serpent. "Where's the nearest exit?" Claire's voice trembled, but she steeled her gaze at him, refusing to show weakness. He chuckled, low and sinister. Why would you want to leave so soon? The night is full of wonders. Her skin crawled at his words. There was no wonder in the chill that enveloped her, only danger. I just need to get out, she stammered, her voice losing steadiness. Before he could respond, a frigid gust of wind blew through the entrance door, sending a chill through the room. Claire's instinct kicked in. She pushed past the desk, heart racing as the clerk's laughter echoed behind her. The gnawing whispers followed her, chanting nonsense phrases, their meanings twisted and strangled. They will come for you floated towards her, a disembodied warning. She fought to ignore them, racing for the exit. Outside, the night wrapped its arms around her like a fog, thick and unyielding. The parking lot felt like a labyrinth, with shadows spiraling and darting like phantoms. Claire peered around, desperate for any sign of life, but the world felt suspended in a midnight hush. She headed towards the street, every nerve ending pulsating with dread. Adrenaline surged through her as she spotted a pair of headlights in the distance. Salvation felt so close, but as she stepped off the curb, an unsettling quiet enveloped her again. The car, now just a blip in the darkness, seemed to hesitate, swallowed by the abyss of night. Before she could react, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking her path. It was a woman, disheveled and wild-eyed, with tangled hair framing a face filled with urgency and panic. "You shouldn't be out here," she warned, voice rasping like gravel. "They'll take you if you're not careful." "Who will take me?" Claire demanded, fear creeping back into her voice. "The Watchers." Claire's heart dropped. Memories of the scribbled warnings in her room rushed back. "What do you mean? What do I do?" "Don't stay out after nightfall. You must find the key." Suddenly, the air changed heavy, electric. Shadows converged around them, thickening like a living being. The woman's eyes widened in terror. "They're coming!" Desperation clawed at Claire as she turned to run, but the shadows closed in, swirling around her like a tide rolling in. The whispers grew deafening, chanting her name, pulling her deeper into the night. "Where is the key?" Claire screamed, realizing she was lost in the chaos. But the woman was gone, and Claire stood alone at the edge of an overwhelming darkness, the now eerily familiar dread tightening its grip. What lay ahead was uncertain, enticing yet terrifying. With unseen forces lurking nearby, she had to decide, would she face whatever haunted this cursed place, or succumb to the shadows calling her name? The question echoed in her mind as the shadows pulsed with life and hunger. A shiver crawled down Claire's spine as she stood paralyzed, the shadows swirling ominously around her. They weren't just shapes, they moved with intent, slithering forward as if searching. Every breath she took felt like drawing in ice, painfully sharp against her lungs. Panic surged, igniting her frozen limbs. She needed to move. The echoes of the woman's warning collided with the murmurs swirling in the dark. "The key," Claire muttered, her voice barely a whisper. Where was it? The urgency clawed at her, pushing her toward the motel again. It was a risk, but staying out felt like inviting death. Footfalls heavy with dread, she retraced her steps. The front desk loomed ahead, the clerk still there, grinning wider than before. "Back so soon?" he crooned, as if he savored her fear. "Looking for something? Where's the key?" She shot back, frustration bleeding into fear. A ripple of laughter spilled from him, sinister and calm. "It's not what you think, my dear. The key isn't a simple object. It's deeper, hidden." His eyes glinted in the glow of the neon light as if he derived pleasure from her suffering. "Where?" she pressed, fighting the urge to flee again. "Behind what you can't see," he said enigmatically. "Not everyone can survive a night in the dark." The shadows twisted with each word, hunger evident in their movements. A scream clawed at the back of her throat. Instead, she spun away from him, needing to escape the room thick with suffocating malice. Claire dashed further into the motel, doors lining the hallway like ominous sentinels. Room numbers flickered past, some were blank, others smeared with a dark substance that looked like dried blood. She shuddered at the stains, yet the call of the key echoed louder than her revulsion. "Find it," the echoes whispered again, an unsettling chorus of broken words. Every direction felt wrong, every choice leading her deeper into the web of despair. She reached for a door handle, cold metal beneath her trembling hand. Without thinking, she pushed it open, stepping into darkness tinged with the scent of mildew and moss. The room was barren, save for a single chair in the center. Light from the hallway barely illuminated its worn, creaking outline. "Is it here?" she murmured, stepping inside cautiously. The door slammed behind her, plunging her into blackness. Claire's heart thundered as the shadows pressed in, suffocating. Panic spiraled as she fumbled at the doorknob, but it resisted her. She was trapped. Kiki, she heard now, not just whispers but raspy breathing that felt all around her. She couldn't tell its source, the darkness cloaking her senses. If the key was here, she had to find it quickly. Fingers grazing the wall, her breath catching against the sudden chill. Her hand brushed against something. The wall felt different, rough and uneven. The sensation sent a jolt of panic through her veins. Was it a crevice? She ran her fingers along the surface, feeling for any sign of movement. A crack, a shimmer caught her attention, barely visible but undeniable. "Claire," a voice hissed, dragging her focus. Time stretched as she wrestled with the pounding fear. The shadows writhed in corners she could not see, coiling like serpents around her. She mustered what courage she could summon, and pressed against the unevenness. The wall shifted. A secret compartment. Heart racing, she pulled it open, revealing a glinting object nestled within an old, rusted key. It felt cold and alive in her palm, as if it were a piece of the night itself. But as she held it, darkness surged, and the room began to tremble. The whispers turned into screams, a cacophony of terror sweeping her into an abyss. She had found the key. But was it enough to free her? Claire's fingers tightened around the cold metal, the shadows pricking at her skin like icy needles. Outside, the chorus of night intensified, pressing in on her with a delicious thrill of dread. "Now what?" she breathed, heart racing as palpable danger swirled around her, leaning closer. What lay beyond the door, and did the key reveal more horrors instead of salvation? The question loomed as the shadows lunged, ready to claim what was theirs. The key felt alive, pulsating against Claire's palm, as if it were drawing energy from her mounting fear. Each scream echoed through her skull, a cacophony that drowned out rational thought. This room felt like a tomb, silent yet screaming with untold horrors, the air thick with decay and despair. Claire's heart raced as the shadows slithered closer. "What do you want?" she gasped, her voice trembling in the thick darkness. The shadows responded with a low growl, an inhuman sound that rattled her bones. She pressed her back against the wall, desperately searching for a way out. The door, her only hope, seemed so far away. But with the key in her hand, something compelled her to linger. Maybe it could unlock more than just the door. Maybe it was the key to understanding the despair smothering her. "Find the door, it opens," the dark whispers surged, now urgent, as if sensing her hesitation. Claire squeezed her eyes shut, gathering her wits. "What do you mean?" In that moment, the air shifted. A draft swept through the room, carrying the scent of something ancient, something foul. She cautiously moved back toward the lighted threshold, gripping the key tighter, its metal heating against her skin. She hesitated, then turned to the chair in the center of the room. It loomed like a ghost in the half-light, inviting her to confront whatever it held. Her instincts screamed to run, but a buried curiosity gnawed at her. With a deep breath, she approached. Spinning the chair around revealed a grotesque sight, something dark intertwined in its fabric, a twisted mass that bore no resemblance to anything human. Her stomach twisted involuntarily, but she leaned in closer, driven by a force beyond her control. Among the filth, something glimmered. Unable to stop herself, Claire reached out, fingers brushing against the object. Another key. This one was sleek, modern, its surface shining even in the darkness. She yanked it free, but as she did, the chair let out a ghastly creaking sound, and the room surged with a pulse of dark energy. Claire stumbled back, clutching both keys. She glanced nervously at the door, feeling an insatiable urge to open it. But the whispers grew louder, drowning her in a riot of voices. The truth is behind the darkness. Unlock it. The walls began to warp and shudder, shadows enveloping her like grotesque hands. Instinct kicked in, and she dashed for the door, both keys clasped tightly. Her fingers trembled as she fumbled with the handle, the cold metal feeling more alive than ever. What if the keys led to salvation? Or destruction? Doubt thrummed in her chest as she hesitated with the rusty key, its coldness seeping into her skin like a poison. She pressed the key against the lock and twisted. A grinding noise filled the air, a protest as if the door itself wanted to resist whatever lay beyond. But with a deep breath and a summon of strength, she turned the knob fully. The door creaked open, revealing a hallway darker than the room. The shadows danced as if alive, beckoning her to enter. Go, the whispers urged with a hunger that sent cold shivers up her spine. What lay beyond? The air hummed with potential and peril. Claire stepped inside, the darkness swallowing her whole. Then, as if sensing her vulnerability, a laughter echoed through the hallway, chilling her to the core. It was the same laugh from the clerk, gleefully taunting, reverberating off the walls. Now you've done it, he crooned. You think you can escape? The shadows began spinning again, this time wrapping around her ankles like chains. Claire broke into a run, heart pounding as the ominous laughter pursued her. The key in her hand felt heavier, urging her onward. But the deeper she ventured, the more the darkness expanded, hungry and relentless. She could sense it, the unseen eyes watching her, waiting for her next move. And worse yet, she could feel the weight of her choices pressing down. As she sprinted, she stumbled into yet another door, this one faintly glowing as if it held the answers to her fate. Can this door be the escape she desperately seeks, or will it only lead to more nightmares lurking in the shadows? The decision tightened around her like a noose, and the darkness stirred, eager for her choice. What awaited her behind it? With panic rising, she knew she had no choice but to find out. The glow of the door flickered, casting strange shapes on the walls. Claire hesitated, her breath coming out in short gasps. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to find another way, yet the pull of that soft light trapped her like a moth to a flame. She could almost feel the shadows closing in, their whispers rising in frantic urgency. Open it! They hissed, a promise laced with malevolence. Claire swallowed hard, her throat dry like sandpaper. Unclenching her fingers from the key, she stepped forward, the chilling laughter still echoing in her mind. With a deep breath, she reached for the handle. It felt warm, almost inviting, but inside her, a storm brewed. This door glowed too brightly against the encroaching darkness, and doubts crept in. What lay behind was a question wrapped in fear. Would there be more keys? More doors? Or worse yet, a truth she was not ready to face? But she needed to know. Maybe this time, the answers would not come at a price. Turning the handle, she pushed the door open. A wave of ice-cold air hit her, an overwhelming sensation that pushed back against her presence. The glow brightened, revealing a narrow corridor lined with old photographs, faces watching her with hollow eyes. They looked like people long forgotten, their smiles twisted into grimaces, as if they begged her to turn back. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath her. Her heart skipped. The floorboards creaked ominously, sagging as if they were alive and reacting to her weight. Claire stepped inside, the air thickening with dread. Help! A voice broke through the silence. It was faint yet filled with urgency, echoing from somewhere deeper in the corridor. Claire's instincts kicked in again. Should she run or investigate? The decision clawed at her mind, pulling her in two directions. Help! The voice called again, mingling with the haunting laughter from behind her. This time, it struck a chord within her, igniting the flicker of hope buried beneath her fear. Someone else was trapped? Just past the threshold, the corridor stretched endlessly, twisting into an unnerving haze. As she stepped forward, shadows wriggled, coiling around the edges, threatening to swallow her whole. Don't listen to it! A new voice shouted from within the shadows. It was harsh and abrupt, filled with palpable fear. It's a trick! The urgency clawed at Claire's gut. Should she listen, or was this another ploy to keep her frozen in place? She gripped the modern key tighter. What if it really could open a way out? Or was it destined to lead her into deeper madness? In the silence following the warning, the hall grew thicker, the darkness pressing in. Racing forward, she gritted her teeth against the growing sense of desperation. "Where are you?" she shouted, her voice quaking against the shadows. "I'm coming." The answer was an echo, lost among the walls, but it urged her on. As she reached the end of the corridor, a door loomed before her, parting the shadows like a gaping maw. It was entirely different from the others, adorned with a pattern of intertwining vines. The glow pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. But as she reached for it, the shadows rallied, their fury unleashed. "No!" they screamed as if they could sense her decision. "You don't know what you're unlocking!" Claire's heart raced, pounding in rhythm with her mounting panic. The moment of choice stretched, the air thick with tension. What could be worse than this chaos? What could lay behind this door? With a final breath, Claire turned the handle. And before her flooded in a light so blinding it threatened to consume her whole. What horror awaited her inside! The next moment could seal her fate forever. The light enveloped Claire, erasing everything she knew. It was blinding, wrapping around her like fingers made of fire. She stumbled forward, the texture of the floor beneath her shifting from old wood to something smooth, a cold tile that sent a shiver racing up her spine. Where am I?" she whispered, but her voice dissolved in the brightness. She squeezed her eyes shut, letting the warmth wash over her, feeling grounded despite her panic. Gradually, shapes began to materialize from the haze. A room expanded around her, the glow receding to reveal an opulent chamber that clashed with the fear coursing through her. Golden walls shimmered, adorned with oversized mirrors reflecting decadent furnishings. A grand chandelier hung from the ceiling, delicate crystals shimmering like stars. But there was a wrongness to it all, details that didn't fit this moment. The surface of the coffee table was smeared with a dark stain she couldn't identify, and the air carried a scent of something ancient and rotten. "Help!" The voice was clearer now, echoing from within a dark corner of the room. Claire's heart raced as she turned to face it, her instincts taking hold again. "Are you in there?" she called out, her voice stronger now. "Please! You have to get me out!" The desperation sent a wave of dread crashing over her. It was a familiar plea, yet part of her wondered if she was chasing another illusion. Taking a cautious step forward, she could see the shadows gathering just beyond the edges of the light. They flickered, twisted into grotesque shapes that seemed to watch her every move. The laughter returned, deeper now, vibrating against her chest. Suddenly, the vibrant wallpaper started peeling in ribbons, revealing the damp and rotting cement beneath. Claire's pulse quickened. What was happening? "Don't you see?" The voice screamed again, sharper this time, fraying at the edges. "It's a snare. They're coming for you." The floor shook slightly, and Claire staggered back, panic spiraling. What snare? Who was the voice? "No!" she shouted, the word escaping her before she could consider whether it was directed at the voice or the growing dread. She needed to know what lay ahead. She spun toward the dark corner. "I'm coming!" Her resolve spurred her feet forward, but her heart thundered louder with each step. The shadows writhed and clawed at the edges of her vision as she approached. A figure began to emerge, half-formed, flickering like a faulty light bulb. It looked desperate, wild-eyed, and bound, its hands clawed at the air, searching for freedom. "Get me out of here, Claire!" the figure shrieked, directly addressing her now, and it sent an icy tendril of fear creeping down her back. "Recognition. Is that?" she stammered, a sinking feeling in her gut. Just then, the chandelier above her shuddered, dimming, and shadows lunged at her from all sides. The laughter turned cacophonous, drowning her out, clawing at her sanity. "Run!" the voice shouted again, but Claire was frozen, the blinding light fading. Shadows tightened, swirling around her, draping darkness over everything. Panic gripped her throat, tightening till she could barely breathe. With one desperate thought, she grabbed the modern key hanging from her neck and raised it high. "I know you're in here. I can help you!" But the shadows roared, and behind them, The whispers formed a chorus of malicious glee. Claire fell to her knees, the weight crushing her as the darkness began to close in. What do I need to do? But there was no answer. The shadows shifted violently, ready to snatch her away, and she gasped as something cold brushed against her skin, signaling impending doom. What had she unlocked? A truth that might unravel everything? And in that endless moment, the very foundation of the room quaked, a crack snaking up the wall right before her eyes. What would happen when the light faded completely? The crack crept upward, fracturing the golden facade and spitting forth jagged tendrils of darkness. Claire stumbled back, her heart racing, breath coming in short gasps. She felt small, insignificant in this sprawling chamber that had turned into a theater of nightmares. Shadows darted around her, whispering her name, claws raking the air. Claire, the voice was an echo, sinister yet achingly familiar. Her eyes darted around, searching for its source. Each flicker in the shadows seemed to hold a grotesque face, contorted in malice and despair. Suddenly, the world shifted. The glimmering chandeliers above exploded in a shower of glass. Claire cried out, shielding her face as razor-edged shards rained down around her. The beautiful room dissolved into a nightmare, transforming into a decayed mockery of itself. The stained table became a grotesque altar littered with remnants of something unholy, rusting bones, weathered photographs of faces twisted in horror, and spatters of dark, congealed liquid that might have been blood. Claire, please! You have to trust me! The figure in the corner surged forward, straining against the darkness that bound it. The urgency in its voice melded with the memories clawing at her, memories that brought both familiarity and dread. What do you want me to do? Claire yelled over the chaos, the madness swirling closer. Find the light! It shrieked, its form flickering erratically. The key. It leads to her. She knows. You have to reach her. The shadows roared louder, drowning out the words, and Claire could feel their icy breath washing over her neck, curling around her like an embrace from the grave. Her instincts screamed for her to run, to escape, but where could she turn in this sudden tomb? Glancing back, she spotted another crack in the wall, wider and darker than the first, and her heart raced. Beyond it, she felt a pull, something deeper and more terrible. She pushed her way toward it, the whispers escalating to a deafening pitch. The figure's face distorted, an indescribable agony etched in its features. Don't. You don't know what's on the other side. But it was too late. The intoxicating lure of the forbidden pulled Claire forward. As she stepped toward the crack, the shadows screeched, a cacophony that thrummed in her bones. Just before entering, she caught one last glimpse of what once was a fleeting image of light, a woman dressed in white, waiting just beyond the void. Claire hesitated, muscles tense as the shadowy hands grasped at her ankles, dragging her down. In that moment, the light inside her, buried beneath layers of fear, ignited. She raised the key, its cold metal glinting faintly. I'm not afraid, she shouted, throwing herself into the split in the world. Instantly, she was enveloped in blackness, the key vibrating violently in her hand. Tumbling through a chasm of time and space, she felt her body pulled apart, stretched and reshaped. When she landed, it was with a thud on the damp ground. Claire gasped, sucking in the stale air. She opened her eyes to find herself lying in a dark alley, surrounded by crumbling buildings that leaned dangerously close over her head. And in every crack and crevice, the shadows whispered her name again, tinged with a blend of malice and something else, entrenched despair, perhaps. She staggered to her feet, shivering as the realization hit her, she was still trapped. The darkness folded around her, and despair flooded in again, coursing through her veins. Where are you? She heard the voice call, a faint echo from somewhere deep within the shadows. The alley stretched ahead, an endless night that promised nothing but more terror. As she took her first step forward, cold dread gripped her. Everywhere she looked, the walls seemed to pulsate, as if alive, and the air felt thick with a tension she couldn't shake. Every choice leads to a door, the echo whispered, a cruel reminder of the trap. What would Claire unlock next? Would the light ever return? The question hung in the oppressive air, unanswered and lingering as shadows cloaked her once more. Claire's pulse quickened as she stepped deeper into the alley, the shadows wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Each breath felt heavy, laden with the stale scent of damp stone and rot. She resisted the instinct to flee, forcing herself to focus on the echoes of that voice, her heart longing for its familiar cadence. "Where are you?" she whispered, hoping against reason that it would somehow guide her. Just ahead, a flickering neon sign sputtered to life, casting an eerie glow that momentarily pushed back the encroaching dark. It read vacancy, but the word felt like an ominous joke, lifeless and devoid of warmth. A sense of urgency washed over her. She moved toward the neon light, its glow painting tall shadows on the alley walls, giant figures that seemed to whisper secrets of those who had come before her. She had no time to feel fear. The echoes were getting louder. Find her. Find the light. The murmur of countless voices blurred together, a sinister choir rising and falling in despair. Each step felt like a descent into madness. As she reached the door beneath the flickering sign, her hand trembled. The paint was peeling, revealing dark wood beneath, rough and crude. She pushed it open, heart hammering. An oppressive heat rolled out, wrapping around her like an unwelcome embrace. The air inside smelled like mildew and something more rotten, a scent that churned her stomach. The motel lobby was dimly lit, filled with eerie silence. A battered reception desk stood crookedly, its surface littered with strange artifacts, old keys tangled with moth-eaten fabric, pages torn from forgotten tourist brochures, and pictures of people long past laid bare next to them. Each photograph was an accent of dread, faces grinning in timeless bliss, but their eyes held a depth of terror. In the corner, she noticed a doorway that seemed to beckon her with a faint shimmer. She moved closer, her heart racing faster. This shimmer felt like the light the figure had spoken of. But was it a trap? Would it lead her toward hope or deeper into shadows? Suddenly, a sound shattered the silence, a soft whisper, thick with malice. "Claire!" It came again, more insistent this time. She turned, heart in her throat, scanning the room. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice quaking. Shadows shifted in the corners, but nothing revealed itself. She took a step back, bumping into the desk. An old bell rang out, shrill and cutting. The noise echoed in the room, drawing everything's attention. The shadows seemed to breathe, curling closer, eager for her fear. Her shoulders tightened, panic rising as she felt the air grow colder. "Leave! You must leave!" The frantic voice shrieked, echoing from the depths beneath the desk. Panic gripped her, and without thinking, Claire dove for the shimmer in the doorway, pushing through it without hesitation. The world warped around her again, a blinding light engulfed her momentarily. But as quickly as the brightness came, it vanished, and Claire landed hard on the floor of another room, a tiny motel room dimly illuminated by a single flickering bulb. A figure stood at the foot of the bed. A woman, draped in white, with long strands of hair cascading over her shoulders. Claire's heart leaped with a tangled mix of hope and dread. Was this the light? Or another illusion conjured by the darkness that hunted her? "Help me," the woman mouthed, her voice barely breaking the air. Claire couldn't move. The shadows loomed larger, swallowing the room whole as doubt crept back in. Which door does she lead to? Claire wondered as the walls began to close in, the shadows creeping closer with every second. The answer remained just out of reach, lingering like the flicker of the neon sign outside, hope entwined with terror. What were the shadows preparing for now? Would she discover what lay beyond the light? With the walls pressing in, Claire had no idea what awaited her, but she had to know. She braced herself, stepping closer to her only chance of understanding, her heart pounding louder than the whispers. What awaited in the darkness of the woman's gaze? Claire's breath hitched as she stepped toward the woman, her heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. The dim light quivered, casting jittery shadows that danced wildly around the tiny room. The woman swayed slightly, her eyes wide, filled with an unspeakable fear that mirrored Claire's own. "Help me," the woman mouthed again, and Claire felt a magnetism, a desperate pull toward her. But those shadows, those oppressive tendrils, whispered malicious promises back in the gloom. Who are you? Claire finally managed to say, her voice trembling. The words faltered. Strands of the woman's hair fell over her face, hiding her shadowed features. You need to leave this place, he's coming. Who's coming? Claire's pulse raced. She felt trapped, suffocated by the mounting dread in the air and atmosphere alive with malice. The woman began to step backward, deeper into the shadows that lurked around her. Do you hear that? Drawn by instinct, Claire turned her head toward the door, where strange noises started to bubble from beyond. A low rumble crescendoed, the floor vibrating with each beat. Somewhere, something was coming, something that fed off fear. The woman's face twisted in panic. Run! You don't understand, he comes for those who linger. Claire's mind raced. She couldn't let another opportunity slip away. But escape felt like a distant dream. The shadows around her pulsed with a life of their own, reaching and grasping, ready to pull her back into their grasp. Please, just trust me, Claire shouted. But what about trust? Could one trust a ghost? The woman's figure flickered, half hidden in the dim light like an image caught between reality and a dream. Suddenly, a crash sounded from the door. The handle rattled violently as if something monstrous was trying to force its way in. Claire's heart thumped painfully against her ribcage. She spun back to the woman. Where's the way out? Claire yelled, desperation clawing at her throat. With wide, pleading eyes, the woman pointed toward the far wall, where a faint outline of a door shimmered dimly in the half-light. But what lay beyond that door? Hope or oblivion? The rumbling intensified, a drumroll of impending horror. Do it now! Before it's too late! Her words hung in the air, heavy with urgency. Claire took a hesitant step back toward the wall. But as she did, the shadows swelled, and the room felt smaller, the ceiling dropping low, stifling. A shiver ran down her spine. You're not coming with me? I can't. He won't let me. Before the woman could finish, a blinding flash erupted from the door as it splintered open. A silhouette loomed, large and menacing. Claire felt the chill creep up her back like icy fingers. No! The woman's scream pierced the room, a haunting wail desperate with unresolved anguish. Shadows curled tightly around her, pulling her back. In a heartbeat, Claire was moving, driven by terror. She dashed toward the shimmering outline against the wall, her thoughts a chaotic storm of confusion and fear. Behind her, darkness spilled into the room, swallowing the woman whole. Claire reached the door just as the world around her began to distort. Heart racing, she pushed through, praying for salvation. As she stepped into the other side, reality shifted again, throwing her into a new realm wrapped in oppressive weight. But she wasn't alone. Standing before her, a different figure loomed, a man with hollow eyes fixed on her. A smile split his face, twisted and unhinged. Welcome, he hissed, his voice honeyed with hate. I've been waiting for you. What awaited Claire now? Would she find the refuge she desperately craved or descend further into madness? The man loomed closer, his presence heavy and suffocating. Claire's instincts screamed at her to run, but her legs felt glued to the spot. Who are you? She managed to breathe out, heart thrumming wildly in her chest, a caged bird desperate for escape. I am the keeper of the lost, he crooned, his voice a sickly sweet melody. You've come looking for answers, haven't you? His smile widened, revealing jagged teeth, gleaming like knives. Answers? Claire echoed, fear creeping into her bones. I just want to leave. Oh, you can leave. He leaned closer, shadows swirling around him like a dark cloak, smothering her in a chill that sliced to her core. But not before you understand your role here. You're tied to this place. Claire's vision narrowed, the air heavy with his words. Tied? Panic bubbled up within her. What do you mean? The key you found. His grin faded momentarily, eyes narrowing. It unlocks the truth, a truth buried beneath layers of fear and despair. What truth? She managed, her throat dry and tight, desperation clawing at her resolve. The shadows inched closer, whispering. The Watchers, you're past the reason you're here, Claire. They twisted around her, tightening their grip. With shaky hands, she clutched the keys, remembering their cold weight, the burdens they carried. She felt the chill seeping through her skin, pushing her against the brink of terror. No! I refuse to be a part of this! Claire shouted, willing her body to move, to escape this nightmarish reality, to find a way back to freedom. With adrenaline pumping through her veins, she turned, running deeper into the darkness. The laughter of the man followed her, echoing through the infinite hallways, taunting her resolve. The shifting shadows darted at her heels, relentless and hungry they wouldn't let her go. Stop her! A voice roared in the distance. The shadows surged forward, merging into grotesque forms, thick and gnashing teeth glimmering in dim light. Claire darted down a narrow corridor, mind racing with thoughts of the woman, the warning she had uttered it echoing like a wake-up call amid the chaos. Desperation led her to a door at the end of the corridor, light escaping through the tiny cracks. She hurled herself against it, flinging the door open and stumbling inside. The light was blinding, searing even, but it felt hopeful. Please! Help me! She cried into the radiant glow. A figure materialized before her, an older woman with streaks of silver in her hair, kindness etched into her features. There was no malice, just understanding. You have to confront what fears you, Claire, she urged, a calm that soothed Claire's raging heart. The truth is not something to be feared, it's your chance for liberation. You don't understand, Claire pleaded, glancing back at the shadows now writhing at the doorframe, ready to strike. They're coming. They want to follow you here. You have the power within you, the woman continued, stepping forward. You have to choose. Will you face the Watchers, the truth behind your fears, or will you run forever? With each second, the darkness threatened to seep through, an ever-present danger waiting to engulf her. But the old woman's steady gaze settled on her, piercing the fog of uncertainty. Choose the light, she whispered, a beckoning. It will show you what you need to understand. Claire's heart surged with a mix of fear and belief. Do I have to let go of everything? She asked, every word heavy with doubt. No, the woman replied. You'll gain everything by embracing your past. Accept it, and you'll break free from this nightmare. An unexpected calm washed over Claire as she absorbed the words. She needed to confront the truth, the loss, the mistakes, the guilt that kept her bound in fear. Hair standing on end, she took a deep, shuddering breath. With a new sense of purpose coursing through her, Claire stepped toward the shimmering light, feeling the weight of darkness fall away. The Watchers, the shadows, they were reflections of her unacknowledged pain and fear, not her captors, but her teachers. The moment Claire stepped fully into the light, warmth engulfed her. Shadows howled, dissipating like smoke in the sun. And for the first time, she allowed herself to breathe deeply, the burdens falling from her shoulders. The radiance shifted, showing her an image, her childhood home, laughter echoing in the backyard. But then, faces of those she had lost flashed by, familiar yet distant. Tears streamed down her face as she faced the confusion and regret that had haunted her. The darkness that had once threatened to swallow her dissipated into nothing, leaving only echoes of cherished memories. The shadows became silhouettes of strength, guiding her understanding of painful truths. You're free, the woman's voice resonated softly. With every heartbeat, every breath, Claire felt herself reconstituting from the depths of despair, bathed in warmth and light, a catharsis unfurling from her understanding. No longer shackled by the past, she could finally move forward. The landscape shifted, transitioning into a tranquil dawn, the first signs of healing emerging over the horizon. She blinked against the brilliance, feeling lighter each second. Finally, Claire whispered softly, embracing the morning breeze. One chapter had closed, but this was just the beginning of her journey, the reclaiming of her life, stronger than before. She stepped forward, no longer lost, recognizing the power she held, dispelling the shadows inside her head. But not just for herself, she would help others find their light too. As she took her first steps into a hopeful dawn, a ripple of quiet laughter danced around her, harmonious and whole. And with that, Claire left behind the darkness once and for all. Now, it's your turn to take action, don't wait. You need to subscribe now to catch all our thrilling stories and never miss a moment. Smash that like button now to fuel our adventures and help us reach more souls in need. Flood the comments below with your reactions, theories, and what this journey meant to you. And sharing is caring. Instantly share this story with at least 5 friends who need to hear this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.